So welcome on this beautiful Wednesday, November the 23rd, as we begin the portion Toledot, which means the history. And it's a very good thing to learn the history of our people, to learn from where we come, because it's only when you learn from where we come that you know where we're going. And these stories of our forefathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, make us feel a little better about the dysfunction in our own families. I don't know anybody who has a perfect family. Even those who may look perfect on the outside, when you dig a little deeper, you find a little bit of mishigas that's going on. So let's look at, we begin this week with, we're going to go to Genesis, Bereshit, starting at verse 19, and it says, Va'eli Toldot. These are the generations, Yitzchak ben Avraham, the son of Abraham. Abraham had Isaac. And it says here, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Betuel, the Aramean of Padam Aram, the sister to Lavan the Aramean. And Abraham prayed to the Lord for his wife, entreated to the Lord for his wife because she was barren. The interesting thing is...
Sorry, it was Isaac, not Abraham.
Isaac entreated. You know why? Because I was already ahead in my head.
Oh, okay.
Because I had noticed that Abraham never entreated or prayed to the Lord for his wife Sarah. But here it says Isaac. And you would wonder why. Why do you think Abraham never went to beg for his wife to have a child?
Well, he was promised that they would have it, that through him the nation would be blessed.
Yeah, and then look how old he was already.
But in those days, but still,
yeah, but she was 89. He probably figured that she was never going to have a child. Maybe they were too busy moving, too busy traveling to a new place to even wonder. But it obviously concerned him. And yet here Isaac is pleading for his wife. And the Lord let himself be entreated of him. He granted his prayer. And Rebekah, his wife, conceived. In the Torah, every time there was a birth like this, where the woman conceived after God did something special, opened her womb, it was always because this child was going to be special in some way, chosen for something special. And the children struggled together inside her. And she said, if it's going to be like this, how can I live? And she went to inquire of the Lord. Now remember, Rebekah came from the pagan land. And we can see here how Isaac did a good job to let her know about his God, because she went to inquire of the Lord. And the Lord spoke to her and said, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 peoples shall be separated from your bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. The first came forth ruddy, all red, all over like a hairy mantle, full of hair. And they called him name Esav. And after that, his brother came out, and his hand was holding on to Esau's heel. His name was Yaakov, from the word Ekev, means heel. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bore him. So how old was he?
60.
He was 60. So he wasn't a young boychik. He was old already. The boys grew, but I had made some notes here, because one of the things that I noticed was that Sarah was 127 when she died. So Isaac was born when she was 90. That makes him 37. So Isaac was 40 when Sarah died. 3 years later, oh, I can't even read my own writing, forget it. Anyway, let's continue. As the boys grew, Esau was a cunning hunter, a man of the field. Jacob was a quiet man. It says here, Ish Tam. He was quiet. He wasn't like his brother Esau, who was always out there, always, he was a fighter. He was, Ish Tam was like a very, a man without guile, they say. He lived in the tents. Now here you see one loves one and one loves the other. Isaac loved Esau because he ate his venison. Isaac didn't need another one like him. He also was a man of the tents. But Rebekah loved Jacob. She wanted someone at home. She loved that he was always there. He was a cook. He was at home. She loved that. When you play favorites in a family, let me tell you, you get into trouble. Jacob made some stew. And Esau came in from the field and he was platzing. He was fainting. And Esau said to Jacob, "Give me some of your red stew, for I am dying here." Therefore, his name was called Edom, which means red or from the earth. And Jacob said, "Sell me first your birthright." And Esau said, "Oh, I'm just about to die anyway. What will the birthright do for me?" Which goes to show, really, it didn't mean anything. And Jacob said, "Swear to me first."
A birthright is what, like the firstborn inheritance?
Exactly. The firstborn. And Esau was the firstborn.
Yeah.
So it was his right to be the first to inherit everything that was Isaac's.
Okay.
Because
But it's not just about money, isn't it? Something like about...
You get the blessing of the firstborn.
Right.
You have the inheritance. It's usually a double inheritance. So it was a very important, but we see throughout all those who were chosen, rarely was the firstborn chosen by God, even though that was the way it was written in the code of the land, that it was the firstborn who received the double inheritance. And Jacob said, "Swear to me first." So he swore to him, and he sold his birthright to Jacob. And Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and he drank and he got up and he went on his way. So now we see that Esau, it says, despised his birthright. In other words, it didn't mean anything to him because he sold it for a pot of stew. Now, there was a famine in the land. We hear this often, the same type of story. This is apart from the first famine that was in the days of Abraham. And Isaac went to Abimelech, king of the Philistines, into Gerar, exactly the same as his father has done. And I looked up Gerar, and Gerar is the south of Gaza, that we know as Gaza today. At that time, it belonged to the Philistines, which is probably where they think the Palestinian got their idea for their name, but actually it's not, because the Palestinians got their name from the ancient Romans who called it Palestina. And the Lord appeared to him and said, "Do not go down to Egypt, but live in the land that I will tell you of. Live in this land, and I will be with you. I'll bless you, for unto you and your seed will I give all these lands, and I will establish the oath which I swore to Abraham your father. I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and I will give unto your seed all these lands, and by your seed shall all the nations of the earth bless themselves." So this has been unfolding through history and still is unfolding today. Because Abraham listened to my voice, kept my charge, my commandments, my mitzvot, my statutes, which are my hukotim, my hukim, and my laws here, my Torati. Toratai. He kept everything that God had given us. And Isaac dwelt in Gerar. And the men of the place asked him about his wife, and he said, she is my sister, because he was afraid to say my wife, in case the men of the place would kill him for Rebekah, because she was so fair to look at. And it came to pass, when he had been there for a long time, that Abimelech, king of the Philistines, looked out the window, and he saw, and behold, Isaac was fooling around with Rebekah, his wife. And Abimelech called Isaac. He had already learned from Abraham what had happened. Remember the plagues that came upon his household, and none of the women could give birth because of Sarah? Yeah. And he said to Isaac, behold, she's your wife. Why did you say she's my sister? And Isaac said to him, because I said, in case I die because of her. And Abimelech said, what is this you've done to us? One of the people might have easily lain with your wife, and then you would have brought guilt upon us. And Abimelech ordered all the people, saying, anyone who touches this man or his wife shall surely be put to death. So here we see all this business with Isaac, how he's afraid, how he lies because of he's afraid. And the very next line we read, and Isaac sowed in that land. And it says here, I like it better. Hang on a second. Isaac sowed in the land, and God blessed him 100-fold. Here. Isaac sowed in the land and reaped. That's the word I was looking for. Reaped in the same year 100-fold. And the Lord blessed him. And the man became rich and gained more and more until he became very wealthy, very great. So it's interesting. We can see that sometimes it doesn't really matter that we've done something that looks really wrong to us. God knows our hearts. And he intended to bless Isaac, not even for his own sake, but for the sake of his own promise. Because it would, yeah.
Oh, like he's still in the land of the Philistines, no?
Yes, he's still there.
But wasn't he told like not to stay there?
He was told not to go to Egypt.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Yeah, this is still part of the land. Remember, Gaza was part of the land that was given to us by God.
Yeah, it's true. But at that point, anyway, that's right.
It's still part of the land, part of our land. He was told, don't go down to Egypt.
Okay.
Stay here, and he didn't go. And because he would, be using this wealth later on. You'll see he had great possession of flocks, of herds, and a great household. And the Philistines envied him. Now, all the wells which his father's servant had dug in the days of Abraham, his father, the Philistines had stopped them and filled them with earth. It's interesting how you still see that this day, that they always look to destroy the things that would even help them.
Yeah, they're sabotaging themselves.
Exactly. They sabotage themselves because of their jealousy. Very sad. And Abimelech said to Isaac, go away from here, for you're much mightier than we are. They were a much bigger people. And Isaac left and encamped in the valley of Gerar and lived there. And Isaac dug again wells of water, which they dug in the days of Abraham, his father, for the Philistines had stopped them in the name of after the death of Abraham. Again, they're doing it to themselves. He called their names after the names which his father had called them. And Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of living water. And the herdsmen of Gerar strove with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, the water is ours. And he called the name of the well Esek, because they contended with him. That's what Esek means. They fought, they struggled with him, they contended. And they dug another well, and they strove for that too. And he called the name of it. Now, this is very interesting, because if you look at what the name is, Sitnah, if you look at the letters, Samech, no, that's a Sin, I think a Tet, and a Nun, it's the female of Satan. The word Satan in Hebrew means the adversary, anyone who goes against, who fights a person or a thing is called a Satan. Here it's the female of Satan, Sitna. Mm. And he removed from thence and dug another well. For that they didn't fight over. And he called the name of it Rehoboth, which means wide. For he said, for now the Lord has made room for us, and we shall be fruitful in the land. And he went up there to Beersheba. And the Lord appeared to him the same night and said, I'm the God of Abraham, your father. Don't be afraid, for I'm with you. I will bless you, multiply your seed for my servant Abraham's sake. Now, when we pray, we can go to the Lord when we say in the merits of Bezechuto, in the merits of our fathers, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We have the right to do that. And he planted an altar there. He built an altar there and called upon the name of the Lord. And he pitched his tent there. And there Isaac's servants dug a well. Then Abimelech went to him from Gerar, and Ahuzat his friend, and Phicol the captain of his host. So these are the people from Abimelech. They went to Isaac. And Isaac said to them, why are you coming to me? You hate me. You sent me away from you. And they said, we clearly saw that the Lord was with you. And we thought we better make an oath between us. Let's make a covenant that you will not harm us, because we haven't touched you. We haven't done anything but good to you. We sent you away in peace. Now you are blessed of the Lord. And Isaac made a feast, and they drank and they ate, or maybe Abimelech made a feast, it doesn't say here. And they rose up in the morning and swore one to another. And Isaac sent them away, and they departed from him in peace. What I found interesting about this was that Isaac didn't go and consult God before he accepted that he would not do them any harm. He just made this oath without really asking God. And it seems to me that I remember reading in Numbers, I think we talked about it on Shabbat, about how God told us to get everybody out of the land who we had to kick out, who were pagans. And here Isaac is accepting and allowing them, making an oath with them. So I don't know. I think it would have consequences later on. But again, that's my opinion. And what do you think about that?
I'm just trying to get the timeline. Where is this? In the timeline of their being in Canaan, when they fought all the tribes and this and that. This is way before. This is like way before.
So they wouldn't have known that yet.
That's what I mean. So maybe they don't really have the same sense of that yet.
Exactly. That's a good thought.
Okay, yeah.
And it came to pass the same day that Isaac's servants came and told him concerning the well which they had dug, and said to him, we have found water. And he called it Sheba. That is the name of the city, which is Beer-sheba unto this day, the well of Shiva. It's the well of the oath, where they made this oath. And Isaac was 40 years old. Esau was 40. And he took to wife Judith, the son of Beeri the Hittite, and Basemat, the daughter of Elon the Hittite. And they were a bitterness of spirit to Isaac and to Rebekah. Remember, Abraham did not want a wife for Isaac from the Hittites, from the Canaanites. He sent his servant to get Rebekah. And because he knew the type of people who lived in the land, and he didn't want his son to have anything to do with them. So here Esau is making already a mess of things. And it came to pass that when Isaac was old, and his eyes were dim so that he could not see, he called Esau his elder son, and said to him, my son. And his son said to him, Hineni, here I am. And he said, behold, now I'm old. I don't know when I will die. So now I beg you, take your weapons, your quiver and your bow, go out to the fields and bring me some venison and make me a savory dish, food that I love. Bring it to me so that I may eat and that my soul may bless you before I die. It's interesting that God had spoken to Rebekah that Jacob would be the one to have the birthright or would be blessed. It would be through the line of Jacob, but I don't think she ever shared it with Isaac, because here Isaac is about to bless Esau. Rebekah heard when Isaac spoke to Esau, his son, and Esau went to the field to hunt for venison and to bring it. Rebekah spoke to Jacob, her son, saying, behold, I heard your father speaking to Esau, your brother, saying, bring me venison, make me savory food that I may eat, and bless you before the Lord before my death. So listen, my son, listen to my voice and do what I command you. Go to the flock, fetch me 2 good kids from the goats, and I will make them savory food for your father the way he loves it. And you shall bring it to your father so that he may eat, so that he may bless you before his death. She was very similar to Sarah. She was taking matters into her own hands, the way Sarah brought Hagar. And every time we do that, every time we get ahead of God, we get into trouble. Jacob said to Rebekah, his mother, but Esau, my brother, is a hairy man, and I'm a smooth man. Perhaps my father will feel me, and I will seem to be mocking him, and I'll bring a curse upon myself, not a blessing. And his mother said to him, let the curse be upon me, my son. Only listen to my voice. Go and fetch them for me. Now these words, it seems, came to pass because after Jacob left, we never hear another word about Rebekah. So it could be that maybe she did die. And he wasn't there when she got home. When he got home, I know Jacob and Esau buried his father, but his mother had already gone. And we know that he was much older than her. So he went and fetched him, brought them to his mother, and his mother made savory food, such as his father loved. And Rebekah took the choicest garments of Esau, her elder son, which were in her house, and put them upon Jacob, her younger son. And she put the skin of the kids of the goat upon his hands and upon the smooth of his neck. And she gave the savory food and the bread which she had prepared into the hand of her son Jacob. And he came to his father and said, my father. And he said, Hineni, how here I am. Who are you, my son? And Jacob said to his father, I'm Esau, your firstborn. I did according to what you asked me. Arise, I beg you, sit and eat of my venison, so that your soul may bless me. And Isaac said to his son, how is it that you found it so quickly, my son? And he said, well, the Lord thy God has sent me in good speed. He blessed me. That's how I was able to get the food so quickly. And Isaac said to Jacob, come near, I pray, I beg you, that I may feel you, my son, whether you are really Esau or not. And Jacob went near to Isaac his father, and he felt him and said, his father said, the voice is the voice of Jacob, of Yaakov, but the hands are the hands of Esau. And he did not discern him because his hands were hairy, as his brother Esau's hands. So he blessed them, and he said, are you my son? Are you really my son? And Jacob said, I am. Ooh, another lie. And he said, bring it near me, and I will eat of thy son's venison, of my son's venison, and my soul will bless you. And he brought it near, and he ate, and he brought him wine, and he drank. And his father said to him, come near now, and kiss me, my son. And he came near and kissed him. And he smelled the smell of the garment and blessed him, and said, see, the smell of the son is as the smell of a field which the Lord has blessed. So let God give you the dew of heaven and of the fat places of the earth and plenty of corn and wine. Let people serve you and nations bow down to you. You will be Lord over your brothers, and your mother's sons shall bow down to you. Cursed will be anyone who cursed you, and blessed will be anyone who bless you. It came to pass as soon as Isaac ended blessing Jacob, and Jacob had scarcely left the presence of his father Isaac, Esau, his brother, came in from hunting. He had already made savory food and brought it to his father. And he said to his father, let my father arise and eat of his son's venison, that your soul may bless me. And Isaac, his father, said, who are you? And he said, I am your son, your firstborn Esau. And Isaac trembled very exceedingly and said, who then was he who brought me, who had taken venison and brought it to me? And I have eaten of all before you came, and I have blessed him, and he shall be blessed. When Esau heard the words of his father, he cried with an exceeding great and bitter cry and said to his father, bless me too, my father. And he said, your brother came with guile and has taken away your blessing. And he said, is not he rightly named Jacob? For he has supplanted me twice. First, he took away my birthright, and now he has taken away my blessing. And he said, do you not have another blessing reserved for me? And Isaac answered and said to Esau, behold, I have made him your Lord, and all his brothers have I given to him for servants, and with corn and wine have I sustained him. And what then shall I do for you, my son? And Esau said to his father, have you only one blessing, my father? Bless me too, oh my father. And Esau lifted up his voice and wept. And Isaac his father answered and said to him, behold, the fat places of the earth shall be your dwelling, and of the dew of heaven from above. And by your sword you shall live, and you shall serve your brother. And it shall come to pass, when you break loose, that you shall shake his yoke from off your neck. Now, I printed something because I wanted to understand what that meant in the future, because I know that there were things written in Jeremiah and Hosea, and it says, the prophecy of Edom, who comes from Esau, subjection to his brother was literally fulfilled, as the Edomites for ages had a mere dependency upon Judah. But in the days first of Joram and then of Ahaz, it revolted and recovered its freedom. It was again conquered by Hyrcanus, the nephew of Judah Maccabee. Nor was its subject condition altered by the fact that the dynasty of the Herods was of Edomite extraction. In troubled times then, it broke the yoke from its neck, but generally Edom served his brother. There are different opinions, and we'd have to take each one of them. but that would take more time than we have here. But it says here, Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing that his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart, as soon as the Shiva is over, as soon as the mourning for my father is over, I'm going to kill my brother Jacob.
And yet he's the one who asked for the lentils to give him his birthright. Like, I mean, you know.
But that's exactly what I was going to talk about in a minute. You're right, Miriam.
Okay.
He blamed his brother, but he didn't care.
Yeah.
He didn't care about the birthright. He didn't care about the blessing, really. He was a free spirit. He wanted to do what he wanted to do. And the Edomites became very great. And remember, when Jacob came back, Jacob bowed to Esau.
Right.
So maybe at that point, the yoke was off his neck. That's why I'm not sure if I fully agree. Everybody has an opinion about these things.
What do you mean fully agree with what?
With what I just read to you about when the yoke would be taken off his neck.
Okay.
Because to me, it was taken off at that moment when he came back and he bowed to his brother, and, he was afraid of his brother.
Right.
And the words of Esau, her older son, were told to Rebekah. And she sent and called Jacob, her younger son, and said to him, your brother Esau, as soon as he's comforting himself, as soon as the shiva is over, is going to kill you. So therefore, my son, listen to my voice. Go to Lavan, my brother, in Haran, and stay with him for a few days until your brother's fury turns away, until your brother's anger turns away from you and he forgets what you've done to him. Then I will send and fetch you from there. Why should I be bereaved of you both in one day? The interesting thing is she never sends for him. So we don't know what happens to Rebekah right after this. And Rebekah said to Isaac, I am weary of my life because of the daughters of Het. If Jacob takes the wife from the daughters of Het, such as these of the daughters of the land, what good shall my life do to me? So Rebekah knew that her brother had other children and that she would be able to, that Jacob would find another son, find a wife there. Jerry, at any time, if you have anything you want to add, anything you want to interrupt with, if you have any ideas, please don't hesitate. So now we're just going to go here to verse 9. And Isaac called Jacob and blessed him and charged him and said to him, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. Go to Paddan Aram, to the house of Bethuel, your mother's father, and take a wife from the daughters of Laban, your mother's brother. And may our God Almighty bless you and make you fruitful and multiply you, so that you may be a congregation of peoples. And this is exactly what happened. And give you the blessing of Abraham to you and to your seed with you, that you may inherit the land of your sojournings, which God gave to Abraham. And Isaac sent away Jacob, and he went to Paddan Aram unto Laban, the son of Bethuel, the Aramean, the brother of Rebekah, Jacob, and Esau's mother. Now Esau saw that Isaac had blessed Jacob and sent him away to Paddan Aram to take a wife from there, and that he had blessed him. He gave him an order saying, you shall not take a wife from the daughters of Canaan. And that Jacob listened to his father and mother and was gone to Paddan Aram. And Esau saw that the daughters of Canaan did not please Isaac his father. So he goes to Ishmael and takes a wife that he had, Mahalat, the daughter of Ishmael, Abraham's son, the sister of Nebaot, to be his wife. So he doesn't go back. He doesn't go to Laban to find a wife. He takes it also from Ishmael, who what didn't please his family, I'm sure. So these are interesting passages. We see that they had plenty of tsuras in their family. One wants to kill another, one is jealous of the other, one steals from the other, one lies to the other. Oy, we all have tsuras in our families. And yet, in spite of it, God will always have his way with our people. And we can learn a lot from these for our lives today, to always be faithful to our God and not to try to push his hand. You know, it's hard to know when we're hearing from God. There was something that happened. I told you my kids were in, and there was a few things that happened over the last few days, and I was really upset with my daughter. I was so upset with her that I was ready to just say, I'm fed up with you. That's it. I'm not talking to you. Leave me alone. Go back. We'll give me time to cool off. And I started to pray. And I said, God, please help me see another perspective. Please help her see what she's doing so she'll know not to do this to me anymore. And please let her father see what he's doing so they'll know not to do this to me anymore. And I woke up in the morning and I had to I called Miriam. I vented a little bit, but I didn't want to vent too much because really, when something bothers me about somebody else, it's best to either go to the person or to go to God. And I couldn't go to my daughter in that moment because I was afraid of what I was going to say. So instead, I went to God and I was talking out loud all these things that were bothering me. And the morning I woke up, and some thoughts came to me about what I had been doing, what I was doing wrong, what I had said. Instead of showing them what they were doing wrong, God was showing me. And I started laughing because I had said something which she just picked up on. And it turned out that part of it was my fault. And I remembered something that Yeshua said. Don't try to take the log, the speck out of someone else's eye. Take the log out of your own first. And then the whole thing changed. All my anger dissipated. And I met them this afternoon when they came back from visiting who they had to go and visit. And Miriam joined us. We had a wonderful time together and everything was changed. It's absolutely amazing when we go to God and we give to him what we're struggling with, how he makes a way, and how important it is for us not to judge others, but always to look within to see, what is my part in this? Esau didn't do that. Esau never admitted that he didn't care about his birthright, that Rebecca didn't say anything about to Isaac, what God had told her. To remember the prophecy, you're going to have 2 children. One, do you remember? Let me see.
Warring inside of you, sir.
Yeah, let me go back and just to. And she said, the children struggled together inside her. And she went to inquire, 2 nations are in your womb. 2 people shall be separated. One people shall be stronger and the other people than the other. And the elder shall serve the younger. In other words, Esau will serve the younger. Why she didn't tell that to Isaac? I don't know. Maybe he was much older than her. Maybe, I don't know. Why would you think that she wouldn't have told him?
First of all, we don't know for sure. It seems like she didn't tell him, but we
No,
don't
because he was going to bless Esau.
Maybe
if she had told Isaac, God spoke to me and told me Jacob is going to serve Esau.
Maybe he wouldn't believe her or something. I don't know.
What?
Maybe he wouldn't believe her, Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
We don't know, but all we know is he didn't know, or he didn't care. I don't know, but it seemed that way. But we all have these things within us. You know, it's so easy to blame others. But I know, I remember when you're pointing a finger at someone, three fingers are pointing back at us. One is pointing up to God. It's right from the very beginning. Adam and Eve. The woman you gave me. Eve.
We really have a false sense of what it means to be blessed by God. Like, I know my tendency is towards guilt. How can God love me if I've done this and I've done that? And that's just not the truth. We're humans and we're so flawed, but it's how we look at it and how we want to change things around. It's what we do, how we live our lives. It's not that we're only the perfect people are going to be touched by God. You know,
it's interesting how the Torah is the only book that shows its characters to be so frail, so human, always making mistakes, no heroes. Most of the other books were all perfect. They've made these perfect Herculean heroes that doesn't exist in God's world. He's the only one who's perfect. None of us. That's why we can't point fingers at anybody else. We don't have a right to judge others. We have a right to judge ourselves. We were not called to be judges. We can say what's right and what's wrong in God's eyes, but we don't have a right to judge them, because let me tell you, as soon as you judge somebody else, you're going to take a look at who you are, and it hurts. New Jer, you're very quiet tonight.
Yeah, I'm quiet tonight. So maybe Rebecca didn't want to tell Isaac for fear that Isaac will try to do things he couldn't change the will of God, but maybe he would do things that to perhaps make it more difficult for Jacob, you know?
Well, I know it seems that he didn't like Jacob because he liked Esau. He played favorites. Is that what you mean? I don't know.
No.
But this is right at the beginning. Before the children were born.
Yeah, but Rebecca didn't want to tell Isaac, you said just before.
Well, I don't know. It doesn't say.
Oh, well.
Yeah, it doesn't say because.
Well, but you just said so. She did not tell Isaac of the vision that she had, that God said that the older will serve the younger. That she didn't mention that to maybe she wanted to make him feel bad, or maybe she didn't want to have him try to modify things.
Maybe. Yeah, she preferred Jacob, so maybe she wanted to make sure that he was blessed and not, Esau.
Yeah, we tend to want to manipulate situations to make things turn out the way we want them to turn out.
Yeah.
It's such a human trait, manipulation. And there's a verse later on that says manipulation is like witchcraft. God hates it. So, yeah, there's a lot to learn from these portions. Yeah. Anything else stand out to you?
Well, the other thing was that you see several times it's mentioned here that the men were afraid to mention that their wives were their wives, so it shows you the barbarisms at the time, I'm not sure if you have that, you have a lot of that today too, that it's very dangerous. Infidelity is not only dangerous for that, but you could put your spouse in danger. Besides be not, you're being like that. So, besides everything else, you put his life in danger or her life in danger.
Yeah, it seemed to be a practice of the day. If you wanted somebody else's wife, you just kill the husband.
Yeah, but it's a little bit still going on now.
Remember, even in the British movie where one of the lords have the first go at the wife.
Yeah, that was the movie with Mel Gibson.
Right. Braveheart.
And that was a practice
where
the lord of the whole area could come in a wedding and take the wife before her husband. Yeah, disgusting.
Horrible.
Yeah.
May have been with who you mentioned, but it was also, I remember very clearly, it was with Charlton Heston as well. You remember that movie when he took the wife on the wedding night? Do you remember that? You don't remember that?
Which movie?
Ten Commandments.
It's with Charles. It's Warlord Charlton Heston.
Oh, the Warlords.
Yeah, the Warlord Charles Heston. I'm not sure about of the person you mentioned, but Charles Heston, for sure. That's for sure.
Yeah, well, it's interesting how one of the things that King Solomon says, there's nothing new under the sun.
Right.
We keep repeating the same thing over and over and over again.
What was the purpose of that, for example? Is it all negative? What was the possible star in that particular procedure?
I can't see any.
I think it was just like, when you rape and you pillage, there's no purpose except debauchery.
It's just, to me, it's evil.
The question, what was the practice? So it's this is only guessing. I'm not, it was a practice. So it was a practice. So they did not consider it an evil, a man-made evil. They didn't consider that. So can we think of everything, a lot of things, sometimes the negative has a positive. Could be a small positive or a big positive. I have a positive, not that I'm saying it's way to go, but what positiveness could come out of that, for example?
Well, maybe I can't think of one. A nagging wife, you would be happy that's some.
No, but this is on their wedding day.
Pardon? The positiveness of that, and this is a question. The positive, usually the warlord was a stronger, more intelligent person in many ways, and maybe healthier, stronger, and more intelligent. So if he was to inseminate the people, you had a chance that at least some of the people would get his characteristics and his genetics. Now, we don't go along with that breeding. You had people in history trying to do that, so we disagree with that. But I'm just saying that I'm not sure that that would do. It's like a person today, and this is a very, very touchy subject. The person today, like a woman looks for a donor, and they'll choose a donor with certain characteristics. But these things are very, very, very up to criticism, because they always can go out of hand. So it's a very touchy subject to try to play with this. Well, so I'm just saying, but that.
I was gonna say that in the same type of words, but it's to me it's that same idea of the survival of the fittest, that we talked about last week, and the idea of the Hitlerian perfect race, the race that's the strongest wins over the weakest.
Right. That was survival of the fittest. That wasn't. I'm not sure if that era was so much survival of the fittest, or that just was to increase the amount of bodies, increase the amount of people.
Well, her husband could have impregnated her in the same way, but he was a warlord, and these people were considered beneath them. He could do anything they wanted with the people under him.
We're talking about you brought in the Second World War with that, so I'm just saying that was, I'm not sure if they followed that so much, or you wanted to increase the amount of bodies, people. I mean live bodies. So the whole study of, in the Second World War, we just touched on that, I thought.
You mean, well, he didn't want to increase the bodies. He wanted to increase the perfect type of bodies, like blonde hair, blue eyes, a race that would be better and stronger than any other race. That's what he was trying to do. Was he not?
Yes. Okay. But I said but I don't think they looked at it anyhow. However they looked at it, it's a touchy subject. The only time when it makes any sense, if you have a female who wants to give birth and they have to look for a donor, and naturally they would try to not to do this at random. So it brings in certain stuff, and it brings in a whole. You have then a whole law of ethics. So some people will go against that and say we shouldn't do that. I'm sure that could be. Miriam can take this up. There could be a lot of controversy when we're talking about that. But yet, let's say it was accepted, and let's say you're married and you have to have children. Is it allowed to use a sperm donor?
You mean if the husband can't provide, she can't give birth?
Right. If the husband cannot provide, so is it acceptable in your with your religion to seek a sperm donor to have children? Or they would say you have to divorce your husband. In the older days, they said if the wife could not give birth, you had to divorce the wife and to get another wife. But with a husband, it's a little different, because
those are religious ideas. That's not in the Torah, because you don't see at any time Abraham saying, "I'm getting rid of my wife Sarah because she can't give birth."
Well, okay, we're going to take this here as a case in point, this case by case basis. So we do have a tangent or an offshoot of that idea with Abraham, and the tangent and the offshoot is that because Sarah was not giving birth, so she asked Abraham to go into her handmaid to give birth to Hagar.
Right.
So these things do happen. This was a little bit of a different idea, but it does happen. It was a way of doing it.
That was custom at the time, but it went against God's way, because God had something else in mind. God opened her womb. There are reasons that people can't get pregnant. I don't always know why. Maybe God wants them to adopt. There are a lot of children who need homes. There's so many, but that's not the same thing. I guess in those days they would take a surrogate mother, but it's not the same. But it's not the same thing as a woman who's single, who gets impregnated with choosing the sperm of a donor. These to me are all modern ideas. I don't think this is in the Torah. I really believe we're just so out of balance with what God wants from us. That's why all these questions come up.
So what's your answer in the Torah if there's a couple and the woman is barren? What's your answer to that?
Go to God.
And don't forget Pardon?
Go to
the
God,
first
ask him.
commandment.
Well, as you said, there's adoption also.
Yeah, if she can't get pregnant, there may be a reason. Very often they go and adopt, and then right after that, they get pregnant.
How did this come up with the warlord, Miriam? How did this idea come up?
What we were talking, just give me a second. They were afraid of when he lied about his wife or his being his sister. They would
that other men could come and take her.
Come and take, kill him and take the wife.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. That's different. The warlord. No, that was the. What we call today, that was the barbarism at the time.
Right. Today, there's still barbarism. It just looks a little different. It's a little more sophisticated barbarism.
Yes, it's still, that you can take a 13-year-old as a wife in certain cultures. Can you imagine a 13-year-old?
Well, in biblical times, 13-year-olds were already engaged. But they were engaged to 14-year-olds and they would still live with their parents. So it was a really different time.
Yeah, but we can't compare to that time. I'm talking about now, the context now. You take a 13-year-old, even younger sometimes, as a wife. I mean, and
marry them to a 60-year-old.
It's just, and I've read certain accounts of young women who've gone through that and they said it was like hell.
Yeah.
Even there's nothing redeeming about that.
No. Well, if we have finished talking about this particular portion, I guess we can come to a close. I love the fact that promises that he gave to our father, I will make your seed multiply as the stars of heaven, and will give to your seed these countries, and in your seed shall all the nations of the earth be blessed, because Abraham obeyed my voice.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Kept my charge, my commandments, my mitzvot, my statutes. And the only thing they had here, when they talked about commandments, there were no other books. There were no Talmud. There was no New Testament. There was no Quran. There was just the commandments that God had given Moses. No, he had not even given Moses yet. What God put in their heart at that time. This was before Moses and the Ten Commandments.
Relationship with God.
Just a simple relationship. They heard God's voice, and we can still hear God's voice today. It may not be that you're hearing a physical voice, but some people do. Some people say they do, but definitely God leads us. He directs us. And it's almost like he puts thoughts in our head, because it happened to me last night. So I know that he does that. And that's the beauty of the Torah, is that God is real. And he's as real to us, to Miriam, to Jerry, to Peggy, as he was to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And that's the beautiful thing of studying the Torah and reading it for what it says.
I guess to me, the most beautiful and special thing is that when we're given a moral code, you can't say, well, what's right for you isn't right for me. Like, I'm not talking about personal tastes and personal preferences. Yes, that in that sense, you could say what's right for me is not right for you. But in a moral sense, you can't justify immorality by saying, I have a different code. Or to me, it's okay if I have 70 wives or whatever. I mean, there's a moral standard. There's an absolute standard that's not relative to other people or other societies.
Right.
And without that, and you're starting to see now the progression of certain acceptances of evil. certain things, because there's no standard.
Right. It's not about your truth and my truth. It's about the truth. And the only one who holds all truth is the God of heaven, the God of the universe, the creator of all things. Right. And we can make as many gods as we want, and gods out of all kinds of things, institutions, establishments, ideologies. There are many gods in this world. Billionaires are made into gods today. And it doesn't matter what they say. What matters is what the God of the universe says. And that the only place you can really find that is in the Torah. So on that note, let's say good night on Toledot, and God willing, we will see you next week for who knows what next week's Torah portion is. Let me see. I'm going to cheat and I'm going to look at the calendar.
I'm doing all the reading next week, I think.
Yeah, next week is Vayitze. So we'll see. It's getting more and more exciting, more interesting as we delve into the Torah. So thank you, Jerry. Thank you, Miriam, for your input.
Thank you.
And I look forward to seeing you next week. Have a wonderful rest of the week. And I wish you, from Wednesday, we're allowed to say Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
Right.